feels like we took a break there from each other or something like that. Was it the stress that we're going to talk about tonight?
Oh, it might be. No, but I'm very grateful to be here. I love being on LinkedIn with you and just
It's,
talking, HR related stuff and kind of
well,
bringing insight and value to everyone. So that's
that's
great.
right. Well, tonight's discussion is a lot, and I think everybody's going to relate to this stress in the workplace and just stress overall. So everybody knows the drill. We'll be right back after this video. This stuff gives me stress, making sure it's worked. I think it skipped a little bit. It skipped for a second. Then your heart just drops. You're like, ah, what's going on now? You try to learn everything here. It's so new. But so how's everything going, young lady?
Oh, everything's going great, living the life, getting,
That's it.
trying to stay on LinkedIn and be in networking, trying to, share the expertise that I bring and the services that SWI brings to, our audience and seeing if anyone can relate to
Well,
it.
stress is one of I think after, you do all the research and you sit there, you think you know it all, but you don't. But all the different types of stress that I was looking at through the workplace, just the workplace alone, and not realizing how much of it is even comes from your home to your work. Because one of the main things that stood out today, and I thought it was pretty cool, I was thinking, whoa, I said, the cell phone. This is probably causes probably so much stress in the workplace from, let's face it, your employees or even yourself, even myself, you get texts all day. Say you're arguing with your spouse or your partner, anything like that, your kids, you're trying to find your kids, you're stressed. I think just using the cell phone will get to you.
Right. You don't know you don't know how to disconnect from it all, right? Like we don't put
Yeah.
boundaries on much needed boundaries on ourselves from things of that nature. So yeah, you're right.
Well, can you imagine if they do it at school? Because even New Jersey's getting really strict. But even Pennsy with my son, they at the school, they they don't they make them turn it down, make sure it's off. But they also have slots in different schoolrooms where you put the phone in a slot so it stays there, so the kids
That's
aren't on their
good.
phone.
That's very smart. I'd rather
Yeah.
that than, my kid on the phone while the teacher's talking and getting in
Jersey
trouble.
wants to put
So
a jammer. Jersey wants to put in the school zone a scrambler to where you can't get a signal. And I'm thinking, why the hell
um,
would they do that? I don't think I'd want it because you still, with everything the way this freaking world is, you'd like to
I
have
was
that
just thinking
connection with
that.
your child, and to
For
shut it
emergency
off.
purposes. I mean,
I
that's
don't
the reason for the cell phone to
know.
begin with, right? Like
It's
that's
gonna
why I give it to
cause
my child.
Yeah, can you imagine what the kids go through? That's gonna be stress that they can't even use it.
Mm.
But I was looking up the meaning and this was funny. It says workplace stress refers to a negative experience people get when presented with work demands and pressure not matched to their knowledge and abilities. I like that. It refers to
Yeah.
a negative experience people get when presented with work demands, pressures not matched to their knowledge and abilities. I like that meaning of that right there. Because how much
I
of
think
your
I would
stress
I would even I would extend it a little bit though, right? Like, because it's also it revolves around people. It's a people
Yeah,
problem, and I say
yeah,
that like broadly, right? Because I don't know what you're going through, you don't know what I'm going through, and
I
then
mean,
in a moment of weakness, I could blow up, and it's not your fault, and that's not
right,
definitely not directed towards you. But if we don't have those conflict resolution um, tips and tricks to
right.
be able to talk it out and communicate, then we're really like setting up ourselves for that workplace toxicity, right?
I can't even imagine the stuff that HR goes through with, the little things that, I always say the little things, but I used to have, and not everybody gets stressed because if you're the manager and you're overseeing people, and if they don't get along, and you know what the problem is kind of, but you don't you get along, you have to get along with both of them. But then sometimes it gets to the point to where at the workplace, I think HR, somebody, management has to step in because you can't do it all yourself. I've learned you can't do it. And that's why I always say to everybody, listen, man, I go to HR and say, what do I do? Because I've made those mistakes of just putting both of them in a room together. Never again. Never
Right.
again will I ever do that without just three of us thinking that, oh, I can do this years ago. I can do this. You're right. You don't like her and just let it on out. No, don't do that. Don't do it.
No, no, that has to be approached very sensitively and to speak to both parties first. But no, you're right. And again, I'll bring it back to that people place, because a lot of times, employees think that HR is like the police or
Right.
HR is for the company, the organization, and not for the employees. But really, we're there to help navigate those
Right. I like that word.
situations and
I like that word.
and
Navigate.
yeah,
I like it.
it's true. And and that people aspect of it, I like to think of myself as people centric.
Right.
I like to think of the person as a person with flaws and all, because we're perfectly imperfect, and bring that to realization, like, and then ask questions like, are you having an okay day? Like, something you want to talk about, and try to get to the root of it instead of, okay, what did they do? Let's document. Now let's play the blame game and no, let's
I
get
guess
to the
there's all
root of
different
it, fix it.
variables.
Right.
Yeah. I guess there's all
Yeah,
like
that's true.
I would like one on one, then one with two. I mean, I don't know. You've been in HR longer, and I've learned my lesson to not push it off, but it causes me stress. It caused me stress, because it ruins your day. You got employees that just don't get along, and you're like, you know what? I might not like that person. There's a couple people through my careers I don't like, but I still work with them. And you have to be professional, whether you want or not. And I know
Right.
some people can't deal with that. They just can't put it aside. They got to have that negative attitude. And for your position, I, I said you'd have to be kind of not stressed because you're going in there trying to figure out what's going on, but that's got to be hard too for you to decide what's causing the problems. Like, how do you even learn that stuff? It's got to come from, I don't know, just from coworkers, and I mean your coworkers plus the laws plus everything that goes on in that stuff.
Right. It plays a lot of it plays a lot to that emotional intelligence, again, boundaries, the policy, knowing your handbook, knowing
Right,
the regulations behind employment, the workplace. So all those variables play a huge part, in our studies and in this um, uh, career, I forget the word, but
right,
everything you've worked for professionally that led to that position is in order to make the workplace holistically a good place to work where everybody can cohesively and collaboratively band
right,
together and keep it moving, right? Even if sometimes, like, and I've heard this before, we've been known to be very upfront and transparent. Hey, we didn't come here to make friends. We came here
right.
to work. So,
To work,
it's always you got to read the room.
right.
Know
Have
your
you seen the
audience,
difference
right?
from take yourself back 10 years, 10, 15 years, and you've been into it for a while, and compared to nowadays? Not I guess with all the different, we've always talked about the Gen Zs, G's, all the different people, the different age brackets, how they break it down. But do you see a huge you gotta see a huge change, right, from when you first started to or how you conduct meetings now with, like, because again, the employees being stressed, they go home, they're stressed, they talk to their significant others, they're stressed. Everybody gets into an argument over the same thing about talking because once you go home, you don't decompress from it. I never did for a while there until I learned how to do that because you have to try to let it go in that car or listen to something, but you have to see the big difference with all that, right?
Yeah, everything has evolved to a
Right,
more, I would say, employee friendly kind of way where, now we have mental health. It plays a huge part of
right,
it, where we're giving trainings to our employees. We're giving more resources to our employees, our ERPs, EAPs, um, and more support. Right. So
right.
yeah, it's come to the front, forward facing of it.
Do you think social
And then
media has a
also,
big role too? A big role in, like, when you've had meetings, like, with people or, different things that have gone on, how social media just adds to that? Because like if you're going around, I try to tell people, listen, I know you're stressed, but I don't go on social media. I never say something bad on there. I really don't. I want to, you want to, but you just, I don't know, as you get older, maybe evolve or something like that. I just don't want that stress. I see people venting all the time, and I'm like, wow, I would never say that on social media.
I've seen it. I haven't done. But I don't really
Phew.
do it. I try to come from a perspective of what not to do. You know
Right,
what I mean? What not to do as an organization for experience purposes, and to kind of share the wealth of information and how to behave from an employee standpoint. So I try to see both sides.
right.
For me personally, and you know what they say, like everybody has ADHD, everybody has ADD. Like for me, sometimes social media is too much. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
post and I
yeah.
keep on moving, and I'll interact there, time and time again. But that I'm on scrolling, like my husband could be scrolling for hours,
I know.
looking at
I just
TikToks and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh no, not me.
Yeah, I try to say LinkedIn's not too bad. I mean, I don't see many people, arguing or getting stressed on LinkedIn as much. I really don't. I mean, I don't think you really need to do that because with having when you're applying for jobs, let's say, the stress of losing a job alone can send you through the roof, because especially if you didn't know about it, like if you were just laid off, like, we had talked about last week on a show that, when you unexpected get a layoff, or is it better to know it or not know it? Like all of a sudden, hey, we're letting you go today. And it's like, whoa, what just
Right.
happened there? And that stress alone, your stomach, and it's all natural, right? I mean, it's natural. Everybody, if you don't go through that, something's wrong with you. I mean, but how to even deal with the stress again? I keep saying it, but it goes back right to the family again. Everybody in your family gets involved with the stress that you have at work.
It's true, like, especially if you're the provider, the head of your
Right.
family, and you
Yep.
get that, it's really unfortunate. I actually wrote an article because, like, sometimes you don't, you get laid off, and the employer or the organization won't tell you why you're getting laid off. They don't
Right.
give you like that insight, and so you're left wondering, like, was it me? Could I done something? And then you
Right.
start like self-blaming almost, and that can be stress upon stress, so you don't want that. So trying to be as transparent as you can be and share as much as you can is imperative. But um it is a stressful situation. I mean, I know, like, for myself, when I've gotten laid off, even looking for a job was a
Yeah.
job in and of itself. And you're all day
Sure.
there, like on the computer, like if you were working, fixing up your resume to get the keywords here, reading up on this company, making sure if it aligns with your values. Like, there's just so much more to it,
And
right?
everybody has an
Um,
opinion. Everybody has an opinion. You're like,
oh my God.
oh, well, I've been there too, like you have, and you're right. It's a roller coaster, but I think one of the things that you have to learn, you have to learn how to deal with it, and I think sometimes some stress that really takes a toll on you for a while. I'm gonna give you an example. Like I had one bad boss in my life, just one, and I never let it get to me. Well, after like 6 months, it was just too much, and I had left. Respectively, I just left. Great company, but what all it took was one. But that stress from that, what I've learned from when I brought it home to or with what I lived like for 6 months, I would never let that happen again in my life because I think sometimes it can build you up stronger. You know what I'm saying? It puts that feel
Right.
like, because I would never ever go through that again the rest of my life. I promised myself, and I wouldn't. Because I think if you confront the issue more professionally, a lot of people, I guess maybe because of military, I don't know, you just were taught that way when you're brought up. Like your parents, you just didn't disrespect the same thing. I can't. I've seen some people really say things at work. I'm like, whoa, man, you're angry? you know,
Yeah,
but I don't get that
right.
way. I don't know about you, but I mean, what do you tell people to calm down? What kind of things do you say to them or to help somebody get through something at work,
Well, you bring the awareness of how they're behaving, right? And
right?
you do it in a respectful manner still, but be like, hey, I, I- and I find like it's always great to start with a question. Hey, like, is this the appropriate place to be doing this? Kind of like bring them
Right,
back to reality, so to speak, right? And then, again, and I'll repeat it because it's something I'm very passionate about,
right.
meeting them where they are, as a human being, as a person,
Yeah,
right?
I love that. I love the
Again,
way you say that.
we all have issues, like, from in work, in the workplace, at home, everywhere, from how we grew up, like everybody, we have baggage, right?
Right.
And whoever says that they don't is lying, because everybody has it, whatever size it is. That's,
Yeah.
irrelevant. The fact is that we have, right? So creating little routines for you to bring it to the forefront, is great. So, like, for example, you know, for myself, the entrepreneurship, I've written about it.
Right.
It isn't like all roses, you know what I mean? It's
Nope.
stressful, and I have to, I have a calendar invite for myself to blocked out, like, go walk, like, and it's in caps, go walk. I
Go
have to
walk.
go walk around and get away from my computer, because if I'm there all day like I want to be, then by the time I'm off of it, it's like I'm not um in a serene place, if that makes sense.
Right.
I'm
Oh, that
not
makes
my
sense.
best
That
self
does.
when I get off.
Yeah.
So those little things do make a difference. So when it comes to stress in the workplace, I found that, going to take a walk after lunch, during your lunch break, eat and then go take a walk around the block, that did lovely for me in
But
some
w
workplaces.
do you see it, and I like how you said about being an entrepreneur and staying home. Like, say I didn't realize, and I thought about it today when I was reading about this, is remote work, how stressful it is. And you think about it, you always say, I'm like, oh geez, they work remote. How much stress do you have? You know what I mean? But they were saying, that's the same thing, because then you got the stress where, you say you're at stress and you're at home, you have stress going on. Now you're trying to do your job. So like you said, either you block it out, you go take a walk, you go get something to eat. You got to do something to get that feeling or anything you can out. And you're not
Right.
going to do it by just sitting there. But I didn't realize, how do you handle work stress at home, remotely? I mean, because if you're going to talk to somebody online, like we're talking now, video, do you think video is as strong as being the face to face? You know what I mean? Like, if
I like
you were
both.
counseling me or helping me or talking with me, do is it would it be better in person versus a video? I mean, sometimes it can't be because people are in different states, and that's just the way it is, but do you have to do it differently? If you think what I'm saying here, differently than being face to face.
So for example, I am part of the SHRM board, and I like that
Right.
we do meet virtually, and then we have those quarterly meetings where we're like together in an environment. So I want to say I like a hybrid approach.
Right.
So maybe the first time would be virtual, like talking like this, but maybe the next time let's meet at a Starbucks and talk a little bit. So, if we have those
If you have it.
opportunities, I would do both.
Yeah, because I think it just, these are the kind of things that I didn't think about. I'm like, wow, the difference in the offices between workplace stress at home, workplace remote, workplace in the office, and one thing I was reading on here too, people were saying, oh, about cultures going to a workplace and they had unlimited PTO, right? And I was like, unlimited PTO. I've seen that before and I had it. People were stressed out about that. And I was like, why are you stressed out about it? Because some people were like, oh, it's not all you can have off, all that PTO, it's not real. You just take your normal time. They're gonna have stress. But then you had people taking 2 weeks here and the other person was always off and you're sitting back not doing anything. Before you know it, it just caused a lot of issues. And I'm thinking, wow, that's an HR nightmare right there. Just trying to what do you do to try to bring that team together? And I kind of looked at it also too as it kept coming up was communication, 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 and listening. Because I get yelled about that all the time. I don't listen. I talk too much, but I don't listen. So I try to stop,
I like
listen to
that.
it, then decide because I can't do it all.
No, that's funny because I had the opposite experience at my organization that offered PTO, unlimited
Right.
PTOs. They wouldn't take it. Nobody would take it.
Nobody would take
So
it.
it was like this hush hush, secret that like you were gonna be. That was the assumption, right? Because nobody said anything because there was no
Yep.
communication. But
No
because I was like
communication.
low at the totem pole at that time, like everybody would talk to me, and
That's
they'd be
neat.
like, "No, but if you take too much, then they're gonna fire you." And there was all these little things. So I was like, no, I don't think they would do that. I think they would bring it to your attention first, especially if your like work diminishes or is
It is.
affected by it. But
Yeah, that's what I mean.
yeah,
There's
that's
so many
funny.
different things that come across. It's like, what the hell? What the hell do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And some of the things I look at, and this was a big one. This one kept coming up about the psychological part of it, the depression, right? How
Yes.
bad depression is, and you had said it before about mental health. How important do you think it is for companies to have those programs? I mean, the way I look at it now is, man, you got to have it. You have it at home. You have your doctors. You have your medical. You can go where you want. But work is including so many different things also because I think they have to at least provide guidance, right? I mean, is that what you feel like?
No, yeah, and there's just so many ways in order to do that to promote mental health,
Right,
cost-effective ways, right? You can create like, sunshine committees, and it's really the employees volunteering their time to make it a better place to work,
right,
and it's nice, right? There's also those walks, building better habits, making sure that the employees know that they should drink more water and walk more and kind of bringing awareness to just making those little changes goes a long way, studies show. So it's
right.
really, again, communication and reinforcing that awareness.
And how important do you think reporting things is too? It's got to be big too. You see it all the time, like in the workplace videos, and to report, like say your friend John, hey, something's wrong, something is wrong there, and within your meetings, you're sitting at your meetings, and you see that person real quiet. You can just tell something's wrong with this person. And it could be anybody, one of your coworkers. But when do you feel sometimes do you get involved with it? Like, hey, like, hey, John, how's it going, man? You got some, you need to talk or anything, because I've noticed as a manager, maybe to go and try to talk with that person to see maybe you can help by saying, hey, is there something going on that we don't know about? How important do you think that would be to do that? I think it is. If you know the person very well, I wouldn't say like a stranger, but there again, you got to really talk with your company and, like you said, get to know your employee handbook and talk to a coworker before you do anything. I think, or get your advice from your HR, something what you can do to help that person as a manager.
Right. So No, again, definitely I would so not being HR and I know this employee and I see the drastic change, I would definitely try to, offer an ear,
Right.
very gently, very sensitively, and if that doesn't help, then I would definitely seek HR's help to kind of tag team it because,
It's only
I
helping a
want the
person.
best
You're
for
not.
my, right,
Yeah,
for my
the best. You just
further.
said it. You want the best. I like how you just said that. I'm sorry for cutting in, but I like the way you said that. You want the best for that employee, and I love that word that you just used because that just tells you know what you're talking about there because you're not if an employees are having problems like that, you don't wanna go after them full bore. You need to find out what's going on, and I think that little bit can go a long way. I had a coworker years ago that something was like, "What was going on?" The lateness is all of a sudden here. All it took was one day we were just sitting there and talking. I said, "Hey, what's going on, man?" And he said how his wife, he was having problems with his wife, and there's something that had happened. And I'm like, "Wow." I said, "Wow." And that put it all in place. Because then I think you can come as a leader, you can come up with a plan on how you're gonna deal with that person being, stressed, and he's stressed, and
Right.
why, and
And
you
then
don't
it
need.
also brings results, right?
Right,
Because the employee trusts you now because you
right,
are looking out for their well being,
right.
and they'll, if it's a real dire issue, then, at least, tag teaming with HR, you can find the best, avenue to take to support that employee. Once you've supported that employee comes back and it's strong, he or she is stronger, they're more focused, they're, grateful that because you have that two, they know it's a two-way street. I'll work for you, you help me, like in this together. And it brings about only positivity because then loyalty stems from that, and then Maslow, it plays to Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
And I like how you say all the words just come right off your about support, about even, like, empathy, but do you feel sometimes employees that, have a lot of stress at work, do you think they're afraid to tell somebody that they're having a problem? Like, is there anything
I
I think it's listen, if I had a person come up to me, this is only me, but if they wanted to talk, I think, like you said, you have to listen. You don't wanna just listen, "I don't want nothing to do with that, man, get away from" you know what I mean? Like, is there a
mm,
time where employees, it's okay to come and say you're having a problem in the workplace, but some of them I think, get scared because they think something's gonna happen because you just came forward saying to your boss or HR, anyone saying, "Listen, I'm having a real problem. Can you help me? What can I do?" Maybe they need time off to take care of it. You know, that's gotta be a big thing. I'm sure you've seen a lot of that.
No, yeah, and and we do have, the Family Leave Act for a
Right,
reason. If you need some time, there are ways to go about it, but it starts off with communication. So to answer your question, um, you know, some employees are hesitant.
right,
I would go, uh, I would go on to say that, it depends on your workplace culture.
right.
If you feel trust and you feel like you're supported, then it's easier for you to open up. Those places that are not, well, unfortunately. But
It's
for me, I always try to make sure my employees know that, we're in a safe zone. If I say
I like
that,
that,
that
I like
means
that.
that anything you say is going to stay here. You know what I
Ooh, I like
mean?
that.
Now, if
I
you
like
bring
that.
me a complaint or something, and that's going to make me, forced to take action, I will tell you that too. Hey, we're reaching this
It's
point of no return. At this point, I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to let the superiors know, but I'll
I
be
like that.
very upfront and transparent about it. So it depends on the type of leader that you are and how you want to be.
I like that safe zone, and that makes total sense because in the military and coming out of there, we would always say permission to speak, right? And when that was said, that was when permission granted in the military, okay? That means you could say whatever you wanted.
Speak
And
your mind, right?
you never had to worry about anything because they gave you permission to speak. As I know some people might think that's thing, but I love that safe zone. I've never heard of that because you have that safe zone. That means you're letting that person know, listen, there. But see, you're pretty smart sometimes. You got that outside to where there's some things that if you say, you might have to go above and say something. Is that what you were saying basically? Like, listen, you're out of that
Yeah,
safe
it just
zone now.
depends. Right. Like once
Right.
I say that, like if it's something like, for example, and I'm going like totally left field drastic, but somebody's harassing you,
Right.
like now I have to bring it up to to
Right.
someone's attention, and
Right.
that's that point. But again, knowing that it's a safe zone, that you can talk to me about it, but at
Right.
some point, and depending on the severity of the situation, I have to do my job, which is to
Right.
protect the employee as the same
Wonder.
as protect the workforce. So
No, that makes total sense. I like that. All right. So main thing I learned tonight, look at that safe zone. I'm gonna probably use that one because I love it. I think it's anybody listening for something like that. That's I think it's a great way. Um, some of some of the stuff that they say cause stresses at work, and these were basic things, but I think when you add it all together, let's just say they were saying here unrealistic deadlines, increasing work demands, um, lower salary, job insecurity, and when you're putting all that together, you don't realize it, but I think if I read all these, you could probably sit there and say, "Wow, I know that one, I know that one, I know that one, I know that one." You know what I mean? You're like, "All right, how do you deal with increasing work demands?" Some jobs, I'm sure, they keep putting work on you and work on you. When does an employee would even say, like, "Listen to your boss," that one-on-one? Again, one-on-ones, maybe, is this unrealistic? I mean, I'm good, but I don't know, what do you understand what I'm saying there? It's hard.
I think that speaks to knowing your boundaries and
Again,
voicing your boundaries. It's so
now voicing what?
imperative. Like
Voicing your boundaries.
voicing your voicing your boundaries. Hey,
Okay.
this is like because especially in our culture, I feel like we are rewarded the more we work. So the more we work, we get more work, if that makes sense.
But it
And
adds the stress to you
sometimes
too, but
like
it's always like stress. You're like, "Damn it, damn it," you know?
here like I just finished this project, and it just this and this, oh here's another project,
Yeah.
so knowing your boundaries, like, yeah, this project really took a lot out of me. I'm gonna need like maybe a couple hours or a day to de-stress, and just kind of like a mental health day. I love that we came up with mental health
I
days,
know. I love
because
it.
I need a mental health day every now and then, just for my own sanity, to come back. And when employers know that giving that to your employees, that makes them even better and more valuable at work, like the
Like,
return is twofold. Like it's a win-win to me, and win-win are
wow.
imperatives. So yeah,
No, I
it's
and
very
and that
important.
no, I agree because I wouldn't I'm like, "Oh my god, just keep adding it on, adding it on." But, I'm always just like, "Sure." I usually I'm like, "Listen," I always say, "They pay the bills. The work pays the bills, so whatever you need, I'm gonna do it." I might voice something
That's what I
afterwards.
like about Gen
Gen
Z
Z. Oh my
and
god.
millennials. They're very vocal about, hey, this is my boundary. They're like, I'm not answering any phone calls after 5. That's it.
Yeah, I'm like, "Whoa,
It is
Jesus."
what it is.
I'm like, "Man, I wish I could say that," in my mind, I think, but then I'm like, "Well, that's just the way I guess you were brought up and everything, it all comes together," because even here's other ones that, I didn't realize it was stress, but I thought about it. Limited opportunities for growth, development, advancement. But when you add that into, low salary again, job insecurity, longer working hours impacting work-life balance. We talk about that all the time, work-life balance. We never heard that word until probably after COVID. I never heard that before. Or workplace culture, right? We've talked about that all the time. But the stress that it causes, that if you don't have a great culture, and you got that high turnover, people just leaving and people just leaving, and it doesn't it happens in all fields and industries. You got a problem there. You got a
Right, and it
problem.
calls a trickle offense. I think it trickles down to your workplace. Like that turnover causes
Oh,
workplace stress, because now that work needs to be done. So you're going to give it to fulano de tal, supposedly like just temporarily, but now you have to fill that position, and we all know it takes 35 to 45 days to fill that position if it's a
right.
good hire, and if it's not a good hire, here we are starting all over again. So that stress and compiled stress to compile
See,
stress
look
is
at
just,
you're going at it, boy. You're going with your hands. You're like,
it's
it's
just,
okay,
it's a
Jess. It's
lot.
okay, Jessica. It's okay. Breathe, right? You got to go for that. Now you're like, man, you were all good. Good. I love it. I love it. But no, you just you said it all right there in one thing. You know, you what do you do when you have this going on, and that's where it comes back to. I think it's just once you've been through so much stuff, and you hear other people having those problems, you're saying in your head, "Been there, done that." It's okay. You know what I mean?
Right. That's why I tell my employee, like my clients, it
Uh,
starts from getting the hiring process down to a T and doing it
yeah,
right the first time. Not hiring out of
yeah,
desperation to fill a role or fill a seat or get the job done, but really looking and I talk about employee and employer value proposition alignment. Like
right,
let's work towards the same goals so that we're in synergy towards the strategic goal of the company. And that's what I'm always writing about in LinkedIn,
right.
having a win-win mentality.
That is, and I
It
love that
goes
again.
far, and the
You
return on investment is twofold.
You say the good keywords all the time. You say the good words. I gotta start figuring out how you say all them. The win-win. I'm very as I get older, I just love the meanings of some things, like different words, or like, and how you say them. Like they even said here, and I couldn't believe this was uh increase, oh, I'm sorry, excessive and tiring commutes is stressful. Oh, I get if it's a long.
Mhm.
I always thought maybe that's a decompress on your way out, because they always give you examples like if you're coming home from work and you've had that 45 minutes. Some people go an hour and a half drive, listen to a podcast,
Yeah.
listen to something for
That's
30
what I
minutes.
do. I
Do
learn.
you? Is that what
Yeah, I
calms you?
learn. Yeah, I love learning. I love listening to podcasts and learn in ebooks on my car. Like,
Right.
and I find ways to drive long distances just to finish it off. Because like otherwise, then I'm waiting to like clean my house or something, and then I'll put it in my ear and I'll be. But but yeah,
God.
I mean I get it. So I would say it's like half and half because for some
Yeah.
people yeah, it is stressful. The stress of traveling so far and you're not home, and then by the time you're home,
Yeah.
if it's not daylight savings, now the moon is out and you're coming home late, and are you going to do dinner and all that? Like, I get it, I get it. For
Yeah.
me, I like the drive. So
That's got to be like the meaning of waiting for the weekend because you see that they commute. And like you said, I look at them like, wow, you commute how long? Man, by the time you get home, like you said, by the time you get home, you get something to eat, you get your workplace, you get everything done. You're looking at the clock, you're like, "Oh my god, it's time to go to bed."
time for
Do it
bed.
all over again. Do it
Right,
all over again until that
right.
Friday when you feel like, and then Sunday you feel like, "Up here." I think Sunday nights are sometimes stressful because you're like, "Oh boy, I gotta go back to work." Some people, you're like, "I don't wanna
I
go
just
back."
I just read something on LinkedIn. It was, if your employees are dreading Sundays because of Monday, like there's a problem in your
There's a
workplace
problem.
culture.
Yeah. If you don't wanna
Yeah.
go to work on Sunday nights, something's wrong. You better start doing
Hmm.
some things. Listen, we didn't have the internet back in the day. I always say it like that. So you didn't have all that. You had to read. You had to read. That's really the only thing that
I
you could
agree.
do is you read books, or at work, you had speakers come in and a lot of them would talk about it, but you didn't have anybody that you have all this information at your hands right here, all the information you need, and I tell people, listen, there's so many different ways, and I think you could say different things of decompressing, how to do that, mental health, how to help. You can just Google and use AI to come up with a plan. But like you've talked about before, making that plan. It's how are you gonna?
It's imperative.
Do you really want to be stressed every day? Do you want to be stressed? And that comes into this point about the employee health and well-being, from smoking, from alcohol to drug abuse. Now you're talking a whole
Mm.
different ballpark now because you might have that one employee that just started to drink because they got problems and problems and they're drinking. Before you know it, they're coming in late. You smell it on their breath. You're sending them home. You find out they got DUI. You know what I mean? It starts to compile all on that employee,
Yeah,
and
it's
it
so
can either
true.
go a good way or it can go a bad way.
Right.
And I think that's where it comes
Yeah.
down to the family and the stress of what are you going to do. You FMLA, maybe you drink too much, and you need to get yourself help. But there's so many different programs out there. If you don't take them, that's just it's on yourself. I mean, that's the way I feel.
And it's twofold. So if
Mm.
HR doesn't know, make them aware, because
Right.
HR's job is to give you those resources and help you out through this, right?
Right.
But if you don't tell us, then we don't know, and then we're left, to be reactive instead of proactive, right? I
Right.
love that, because I always like to be proactive, never reactive. And that's one situation that you definitely need to get ahead,
Right.
before it's too late.
It is because
Um,
the drugs and, the loss it talks about the lost productivity, the healthcare expenditure, alcohol, drugs lead to workplace aggression, increased likelihood of industrial accidents, extreme circumstances, death, possible cause stress at work. It just there again in that one paragraph right there, you're like, whoa, you can see so many different friggin' scenarios where it's gonna go.
right.
And like you said, it could cause death at the end because somebody's drinking and doing drugs and all this stuff with fentanyl now and all this crap that you take. I mean, you see if you see that in the workplace, wow, you got issues. You got to do something. As a
Yeah,
manager, as
you
a team,
definitely
and
have to
as a
change.
manager, I believe that's you. But because if your employees are coming up to you and they're saying, "Hey, Joe's over there. I can smell alcohol on his breath, man." Listen, I always tell people there's nothing wrong with being nervous as a leader to go over and speak with that person. If you're not nervous a little bit, something's wrong. I mean, I just think it's human because you're going to
That's a good
confront that
point.
person. You're going to confront them. Even HR, you're going. Like your wording's a lot better than my wording. It's just you got to say the right things because you say that one wrong word, you're done. You're out. I mean, they're going to really just bark at you, and you're going to be like, all right, what do I do now? Maybe I didn't handle that the right way. And when it comes to this, with this type of stuff, with smoking, alcohol, and drugs and all that, you really need to speak with either your manager, top managers, and stuff to get advice. Or what do you do?
No, it's true. You definitely need to. I wouldn't
Mhm.
advise of doing anything without the assistance of HR there, just
Yeah.
because we're better equipped, better trained to handle it specifically with those type of
Right.
situations.
Exactly.
Um, but trying in an effort to kind of bring it back to like the proactiveness of it, really it's giving your employees the tools and resources in order to
Right.
handle and cope with stress. So those things can be like as simple as that matrix box of do, delegate, delete, leave for later, plan.
Right.
um, that can help with better planning, better strategically organizing your day so that you feel more productive, so that because we know that definitely a feeling of correlation to productivity is you feel good that you
Yeah.
completed something, right? So that brings up your emotions and your self-esteem and all that. um,
And I
and
like
then
that. So
also,
you need to find out the right way to do it because you can blow up in your face the wrong way.
right. And then again, and doing like lunch and learns for your employees, and, giving them financial awareness. Maybe they're in debt out of their
Right.
wazoo and they don't know what to do. So now that's impacting every facet of their lives, right? But, just that simple class goes a long way to
Yep.
get the ball rolling for them. And they feel like they help themselves learn something, and then they're putting it forth. So again, it really does a number on the employees,
Right.
just overall mental health
I
aspect of it, and
I agree.
helping them, resolve. And that's the point of this podcast, right? Like to resolve the workplace stress, resolve that conflict that you have.
It does. It's hard to be a leader nowadays as a supervisor, manager, anywhere going from lead, supervisor, managers, all different levels because there's so much that you need to learn. And if you're self-taught, if you don't know what to do, you need to get help and ask the right way because there's everything that we talked about tonight, and we're going to call it a night here. But I still don't get to say everything we want to say, even though we talk about it. But my point back to that, before I say that, is get some help. Don't be afraid to go to the HR department again. Don't be afraid to ask your peers for advice. There's nothing wrong. Ask your when you're talking at home, ask advice. Anything. I just feel just don't say the wrong thing.
Right. Well, and if you're afraid of saying the wrong thing,
Yeah,
like again, that's when you like really look to your allies at work,
right,
kind of play it with them, like mock interview or whatever, just to see like how they receive it.
right.
Because if they're receiving it a certain way, then okay, let me not, say it that way. Let me find another way. Those things help as well.
I get myself in trouble. I just try to be quiet. I'm like, "Nope, nope, I don't
No,
wanna
it's
say that,"
true.
but no, I wanna thank
It's
you for
true.
tonight, and look, all these trees again, and you even had a lot of stuff too, and we didn't even I think we can have a part 2 about this easy,
We
because
definitely could. There's just so
yeah,
many things to touch upon.
that's what I gotta do, look at all this stuff because 'cause I'm like, "Wow," I mean, I didn't there's so many things, and that's why I said about leadership, is you don't know. There's so much to learn that you can just find and really be like, "Wow, I didn't that's a good" I like how you say the words, I'm gonna go back to that. You got that wording, it comes down to that's so important versus if you don't know how to say it, learn.
Right. And I just want to leave you with this one thought too,
Right,
that, there's just so much information out there.
right,
It could be stifling or even like paralyzing,
right,
right? Because you're like, well, which one's the right one, right? And to that, I say like, having HR giving you a workshop or a lunch and learn, or just, a one-on-one with HR, they're
right,
better again able to go through it with you and kind of give you the reasons why this is not going to, it depends on timing, the situation. There's just so many variables within it, right?
right.
And HR is able to better navigate that realm with what to do because we've lived so many experiences. I mean, I
Well,
myself, I've seen it all basically
I've
in
changed
my
my mind. Everybody
15
knows
years.
I've changed my mind. I've always said to people, HR scares the living hell out of me. I've said that for years to everybody on the show. And I always joke around. I said, because they're never in there coming to say, Dave, you've done a great job. There's always something. I'm always saying, you know what? How do I turn that around? And believe it or
Mm,
not, if you keep saying to yourself, they're not the enemy. They're not the enemy. They're not the enemy. They're there to help. They're
mm,
there to help. It does turn your thought process around a little bit because I
and
mean,
I'm glad.
it is, and again, I think that's a big thing, but all right, young lady, I wanna thank you so much, and we'll be back on
Thank you for
Tuesday.
having me, Dave.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do is like I said, we'll talk after this, and, maybe we'll come up with part 2 of this because there is so much stuff here, and I wanted to say, and I knew you did, so we just went off a different topic, so all right, I
Mhm.
will talk to you. Let me find this great I know I'm gonna find it here, Layers, it's called. All right, there it is. I'll talk to you right after this. Good night, Jess.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Dave. Bye.